Oops! This time on Poll Hub, CNN misreports its own poll results, later corrects the record, so what's the problem? Well, it involves Fox News and the reputation of public polling. Lee's got something to say about all of this. Then I'll look at some data that suggests the Great Resignation, as we've been calling it on this podcast, and a lot of other people have too, is actually a good thing for workers and the economy, including companies that can't seem to fill job openings. We're going to dig into that with a guest. And for Lee's fun fact, well, I've just got one clue. Who are you going to call? It's a busy week. Let's get to it. And hi, everybody. Welcome to Poll Hub. I'm Jay DeDapper.
And I'm Barbara Carvalho.
And I'm Lee Miringoff.
Well, we have a lot to do today on the podcast, but I thought we would just start off with what we saw as a poll reporting oops moment, although other four-letter words were used to describe it on social media. But CNN last week reported on a poll that they had done on President Biden. And they had asked an open-ended question about whether Americans, could name something that Biden has done that they approve of. And what was reported and what was the oops was that 56% of Americans couldn't name something that Biden had done that they approved with. Unfortunately, and this was eventually corrected, but what the data actually referred to was not all Americans, but instead those people who already disapproved of the job that the president was doing. So just to be clear, 56% of those Americans who disapproved of how Biden was handling the office of president could not name anything that Biden had done that they approved of. Why was this such a big deal?
It's a big deal for pollsters and for those who follow all this stuff, news geeks. The sun will rise and the sun will set, regardless of whether this was aired or not. However, from a polling perspective, it became a problem when Fox News picked up on it. So I happened to be glancing through and caught the news on Fox, and there was a big splash that basically it fueled the narrative. It fed the narrative that Joe Biden is sinking dramatically, because here you had more than half of the country couldn't even name something that they liked about him, that they approved of. Well, that did not, as you indicated, Barb, turn out to be the case, because CNN, I believe it was John King, reported on it with his nice big screen, was that they messed up the base. And we do know that when you're reporting on polls, you have to be very careful. Are you talking about Americans? Are you talking about registered voters? Are you talking about likely voters? Are you talking about people who have a subgroup, or men, women, whatever it is? In this case, it was people, as you indicated, who already disapproved of the performance that Joe Biden was doing as president. Not overwhelmingly shocking then that these folks aren't long on a list of things that that Biden has done that they really like. So I think this was one case of, CNN caught it. Sometimes the coverage of the correction never gets quite the airing of the original mistake, but then Fox picked up on it and ran with it because it really fueled their narrative.
Well, yes, and you mentioned that they did correct it, and Jen Agiesta, who's the head of polling at CNN, has a really good article worth reading on the results of the poll, where she does explain all about not only the results of the poll, but in particular this question. But not to harken back to a song that's already a few years old, but in polling, it is all about the base. And we're heading into primary season. We're heading into polling elections. How can, pollsters and, more importantly, the public be careful about figuring out who has actually been polled and what articles are talking about, what reporters are talking about, and what pollsters are talking about?
It's funny. That's one of the things we started when we first discussed doing this thing called the Academy that you hear about at the end of every episode of Poll Hub. That's one of the things we talked about is could we do some sort of an online learning portal for the public that would, and reporters, that would help them do a better job of understanding polling, because it's complicated. It's complicated. Mistakes can be made in reporting them in this way. And I think what's so interesting about this is that this is one of the main things that we talk about in the academy and in our internship program with the students that we work with, who then end up doing much of our social media, much of our reporting of our polls. A lot of this is written by students, and then we have editors and supervisors that look over this. But this is one of the things that comes up a lot: is what is the number represent? Is it all Americans? Is it voters? Very different. Is it men or women or all these other kinds of bases? And I think this is really interesting that a major news organization made a mistake that is such a kind of fundamental mistake that we have sought from the beginning of launching the academy to through everything else that we're doing, to try and help people understand how to not make that mistake. And then these are pros and they made that mistake.
Yeah, and Barb, you alluded to in your introduction to this segment that it was an open-ended question. I thought we might want to spend just a minute or two on that, in that the question was open-ended. It asked people, without giving them predetermined choices, if there was something that they could just name off the top that they liked that he had done, the accomplishment or something successful. And open-ended questions are sometimes hard because you're not giving people a choice. You're not giving them several items to pick from. So you have to sort of have something top of mind.
Well, also, you're right, and it's in the middle of a questionnaire. I believe in CNN's case, they actually have a mixed mode of doing their interviewing and data collection. So it's in the middle of a bunch of questions, and we always know those are tough to analyze and can be really tough to answer as well.
Yeah, and if you don't have something top of mind that really is driving you about something, then you may draw a blank on that and not have anything, particularly if you don't like the job he's doing, to come up with an accomplishment, maybe going cross current. So I think there was some issues with this. Mistakes happen. It was corrected. Probably a double fault for Fox News picking up with what was clearly an error and then running with it.
But everybody just be wary. We're heading into an election year, so we're going to be looking at Americans, registered voters, likely voters, and those are all different groups, and we'll have different opinions.
So let's change gears. We've been talking about the economy a lot for the last couple of years on the podcast. We do a lot of polling, asking people about the economy, jobs, finances, and all that. And so much has been impacted by COVID. One thing that's come up a lot is this thing that we've been calling, and other people have been calling, the Great Resignation, which is the large number of people who have been quitting their jobs. In many recessions, you lose your job because you get cut. In this economic, downturn that happened as a result of COVID, people quit as much as people were fired or let go. And even though the economy's really recovered, there's still lots and lots of people who aren't working and lots of companies who want people. There's a lot of job openings. At the end of 2021, the U.S. Labor Department reported 11 million job openings. So there's a lot of people that are kind of on the sidelines. So we wanted to talk about that with Mark Muro. He's a senior fellow at Brookings Metro and was the author of a great report that we've linked to in the show notes that is a bit counterintuitive. Mark, first, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad you like unexpected takes on things.
That is our favorite, actually. And the unexpected take, I think, in the shortest form is that all of this may be good not only for workers, but for the economy?
Absolutely, with a few caveats we can get to. The point we're making is a lot of attention has been given to the number of people quitting jobs. And of course, immediately you think, oh, well, there must be something wrong or something bad going on. And we know that a lot of people have lost jobs in paroxysms of deindustrialization in the past, catastrophes with the economy, crashes of the economy. Here we have this unusual moment where we have a lot of people quitting, and it might be a good thing, at least for now. And I think a way to say this and make this more understandable is the idea that quit rates, it's not so much that quit rates are driving the train here. What is driving the train is the large number of available jobs, and that is allowing workers to quit, to make decisions, to move to, quote, better jobs in terms of pay, hours, or benefits. So I think it's not just so much about that they're quitting, it's the opportunity to quit that is being created by, a absolute blizzard of open positions, especially, and our conversation we mostly revolve around hospitality and retail and food.
So it's not like people are, exiting the labor force and not, disappearing from the job market. It's that they're making choices, maybe even lifestyle changes that they are doing perhaps because of what they experienced during COVID, or just because it's now available to them.
Yeah, I would emphasize especially the last part. I mean, I think there's been more emphasis that's maybe been confusing on the idea that this is some social protest. I actually think it's simply the opportunity to do better for yourself that has not been very much available to people working in restaurants, food, hotels, say. And now suddenly it is, as you're saying. And people are making a move for a pay increase, maybe just better hours. Maybe they're just sick of the one thing and would like to try something else. Most of it within the same sector. It's not like they're quitting and becoming Microsoft programmers, but they're often doing better for themselves at a good pay increase within their industry.
So what was it about the COVID upheaval that is different from other economic shifts that has caused this opportunity for people?
Well, I think it's best thought about in the initial effects, at least, as a natural disaster, for one thing. And it's been insulated with a degree of social support. So workers have not been completely desperate and immiserated. They've had the chance to consider what's out there. Mm-hmm. And then the depth of the crash and loss of jobs in especially hospitality and food, given the unease with social proximity, has then led to this sudden explosion of jobs after the initial crisis. And there's just a lot of jobs available.
How much does that have to do with the fact that in many other situations, while the unemployment was available, there was nothing like what happened in this case? The amount of money that went out to people and the availability of income support seems unprecedented. I mean, I don't know my economic history that well, but this seems pretty unprecedented and pretty different from other similar situations.
100%. And on the demand side, that has meant a lot of people who not only were not in free fall, but actually had some money in their pockets and were ready to go back out. So on the demand side, there's been a lot of people wanting to go out to dinner or to buy something in a store. So we've seen a big spike in demand for these workers.
We see the large number of job openings. Is there still kind of a misfit between who needs to be employed and the jobs that are available out there?
Absolutely. And even in this area we're looking at, we probably shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves in recoding this entirely as a good thing. I mean, the dynamics are largely confined to leisure and hospitality. This one we're talking about of, job plenitude to quits to rehiring. The wage growth that's resulted has been very good, but it's been, if not negated, severely reduced by inflation. So there's that to think about. And then the third one is these are still likely, in many cases, pretty rough jobs, right? This very benign effect is limited to, but it cannot offset the, really tough conditions in many of these lower income jobs, and we cannot lose track of that. But I think we're remiss, though, to not notice that through this crisis we may see a significant repricing of labor, that will be hard to unwind, and maybe permanently beneficial for workers in these sectors.
One of the things that we started this with, and one of the most counterintuitive things, was that this was potentially a good thing for the economy overall, maybe even for the companies that are having trouble finding workers. How is that the case? Because I think it's easy to see how this could be good for workers. Oh, better wages, better conditions going forward makes sense. There's a bit of a disconnect that I think it's hard for me to grasp how this is potentially good for the economy and companies.
There's a concept called the reallocation of work, reallocation dynamics through the economy. That's the movement from potentially one organization to another, and potentially one that's maybe where more elements of the system are in better fit. And I think within these industries alone, we may be seeing people reallocating into better jobs that fit their needs better. Maybe it's better hours, or better wages or benefits, or another, a more likable boss, or something closer to the house, or something like that. Those are all reallocations that can be extremely beneficial. Now, those are not the only possible benefits. At a broader level, we could see movements from maybe industries that we are more rigid and we have too much of, into more growing adaptive industries at a bigger level. And it's more easy to see how those reallocations can be very beneficial to the overall economy.
Yeah, this is Justin. So, the answer to the question, are we going to return to normal, or are we going to have a new normal? What do you foresee as this settles down, I assume, once we get into a more steady state period? Is this going to be what the new normal is, or is it going to start looking like it used to look, like big wage gaps, and maybe even a growth in unemployment again at some point?
Ultimately, maybe so. In the meantime, I think we are readjusting the economy. And it's important that we take steps to do things where we can to nudge the economy towards beneficial reallocations of work, people, wages, and activity, right? So, this is where this would be a good time to be supporting programs that help workers reallocate or get more training so that they can move, maybe not just within the restaurant sector, but from restaurant sector to, a starting job at a higher value professional company or something like that. But this is the time to do everything we can to assure that these transitions are beneficial. I would argue that some of the social benefits checks and so on that removed some of the desperation for a while that Jay mentioned, fits in that. I think that maybe allows people to operate in a frame of mind where they're trying to choose the best course for themselves rather than just stay alive, right?
Wow. A lot to chew over here. And thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciated your insights. And let me plug again the article and the study that you and your colleagues did. Will be in the link to that will be in the show notes. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Very good discussion.
Well, it's not Halloween, okay? But we have an interesting fun fact right now, which has to do with ghosts and whether people actually believe in ghosts. A poll that was conducted in 2017, where our friends at the Roper Center at Cornell University have graciously put into their archives, national survey, ghosts, yes, no, 37% say yes, they believe in ghosts. 60%, I almost said 80, which would have been a good number at that point, but 60% is saying no, they don't. So ghosts lose by a wide margin. What you say, fellow anchors?
Yeah, no, I'm not a ghost believer. I kind of land on the science side, and I've never met a ghost. I think that I'd probably be part of that 60%. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm on that too. I have a question though, especially for some of the younger people on this on our podcast here that help behind the scenes but are in this Zoom call. So the sponsor of this poll is Cards Against Humanity, which is a game that my nephew, who's in his 30s now, with a bunch of his friends came and played a few years ago, and it was very loud, and there was I didn't really ever want to play it after all that because they were screaming and yelling. It was fun. Do you guys know Cards Against Humanity?
Jay, I even know Cards Against Humanity.
Okay, so Lee and I are the odd people out here. So explain to me why they would sponsor a poll asking. Why would a game sponsor a poll asking about this? Somebody jump in.
Well, I thought it was actually fascinating that they did do a poll.
Right, but why would they, Ashley?
I feel like it would probably be tied to seeing what topics would be good to put in, because if a lot of people do believe in ghosts or like don't, depending on that, they could put new cards in because they release like booster packs with kind of newer topics. Like they'll see there's some that are sponsored, like based off of different shows and everything like that. So I think it's to kind of see where their next booster pack should go.
Marcello, what do you think?
I actually agree with Ashley. That's probably a good idea, finding topics that they could just create expansion packs on.
Okay, so you get the last word. 1, do you believe in ghosts? And 2, I mean, is your house ghost-ridden that you live in? No. What do you think about this? Why Cards Against Humanity? Why would they do this?
Well, they're incredibly irreverent in their just whole design. So it didn't strike me that odd that would be one of their questions. But I agree with the other ones. It's probably because you have to pay for these polls. It's probably getting marketing, but they're also incredibly irreverent topic-wise.
So if Monopoly was to ask a question in a poll, what would they ask? Would you rather live on Boardwalk or Park Place, or what would it be?
Well, yeah, but here's the problem, Jay, in a nutshell. Okay, the commercials during Super Bowl, I didn't get. The halftime during Super Bowl, I didn't get. Everybody loved it. This topic, I kind of was with you until the word ghosts, and then this other thing showed up, and you guys have been talking. I gotta get with the program. I'm just out of touch here, no doubt about it.
We need to find a fun fact from the way distant past, then.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That'll do it for Poll Hub this week.
Poll Hub is a production of the Marist Poll at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Mary Griffith is our executive producer.
Casey Schaff is our production supervisor.
The Poll Hub team includes Ashley Marcinick, Marcello Bettman, Athen Hollis, and Emily Fry.
If you enjoy Poll Hub, please consider leaving a review. Positive reviews help other listeners like you find us.
If you'd like to learn more about polling and survey science, check out the Marist Poll Academy, our free online learning portal.
If you have questions for us, tweet them directly to @MaristPoll.
Remember, you can always tell your smart speaker to play Poll Hub, and with any luck, it'll cooperate.
Finally, wherever you listen to Poll Hub, there is a subscribe button.
Click it, and the latest episode will be ready for you in your podcasting app as soon as it's released.
We'll see you next time.